Welcome to our channel, Gray Matters. We are two neurodivergent ladies who fixate and need to share, and we've created this channel to do just that. Check out our podcast, Fixate Today, Gone Tomorrow, for some deeper dives. On November 1st, 2024, the FBI executed a raid on John Paul Miller's South Carolina home. And we have not learned any more information about the investigation since then. What was the FBI looking for? Why haven't we heard anything that resulted from the raid? Is there still an ongoing investigation? Around 10 a.m. on November 1st, multiple law enforcement vehicles, including federal ones, entered JP's neighborhood. Once at JP's home, authorities stood at alert with weapons drawn as a voice over a bullhorn boomed, "This is the FBI. We have your house surrounded. Come out with your hands up. We are here to execute a warrant." After 15 minutes of announcing themselves and securing the perimeter, they made entry into the home. The raid was court-appointed, and investigators served JP a warrant at a Starbucks near his neighborhood. He was not allowed to return to the house and would be held in custody during the search. He had left his house a few minutes before the authorities arrived. It being court-appointed tells us that investigators had enough evidence to be granted a warrant to search his house. It is possible that an assistant U.S. attorney was on the scene, but we aren't sure if that was ever completely substantiated. 24 agents in shirt that read Evidence Response Team searched and took many boxes from the home. Agents spent around 5 hours in the house. Neighbors took videos, which confirmed the heavily armed presence. In one video, you can hear a neighbor saying that the FBI had been watching JP for a long time, and he has gotten away with many things over the years, saying, quote, "He got away with it for so long, he thought he was invincible." Different conversations could be overheard. One neighbor said that JP had tried to give his next-door neighbor his workout equipment out of nowhere. The general consensus of the neighbors on the scene is that they think JP is a creep. At the time, John Paul's house was listed as being an asset of Solid Rock Church. I wonder if the former Solid Rock LLC owns JP's DeLorean too, which was seen in the garage. According to JP's attorney Russell Long, quote, "There was no affidavit attached to the search warrant, therefore I have no idea what it's in relation to, and hoped that this search puts any investigation into JP to rest." The warrant remains sealed, so the public isn't privy to what evidence authorities were hoping to find. This is usually done with ongoing investigations, classified or confidential information, trade secrets, or cases that deal with minors.
Initial thoughts about that?
So my initial thoughts are they are most likely, again, I don't have insider knowledge, but they are most likely, this is beyond Micah, in my opinion. I obviously want justice for her, but I think this is bigger than that. Otherwise, I don't believe the FBI would be serving a search warrant. I believe that this extends to other victims that he may have potentially groomed, or to his ministry itself, looking at some of those financial dealings and looking at some of maybe the exchanges that he had with other victims. I think this is larger than an assault charge, perhaps larger than murder. I think this is going into maybe racketeering. I think this is going into finances, postal fraud, those kinds of things, perhaps even pornography. I don't know. But that is typically when the FBI gets involved in serving search warrants. And if they're bringing things out, such as computers, digital evidence, those kinds of things, that's usually what we find on there.
And just to be clear,
The FBI released a statement about the raid saying, quote, "The primary investigation is into events that happened before Micah died, and in response to allegations of, quote, interstate domestic violence." The warrant would then appear to be based on an investigation into interstate domestic violence. If found guilty, someone charged with interstate domestic violence could face a maximum sentence of life in prison. Micah's attorney, Regina Ward, said that she turned over Micah's journals, documents, and other records to the FBI, which was all of the materials she had gathered in preparation for Micah and JP's divorce. Ward said she didn't know if the documents were the reason for the raid, but she does believe that they played a part. Let's talk about an incident that occurred just before the raid. In the minutes before the raid, there was an active crime scene with a dead body by a dark vehicle at the entrance of JP's neighborhood. The land where this body was found is land owned by Solid Rock Ministries, where JP was planning on building his new church. Sources report that the discovery is unrelated to the FBI investigation of JP and Solid Rock Church. Authorities believe this death to be a suicide. Once the crime scene was cleared, law enforcement moved into the neighborhood. I cannot find any further information about this. The raid overtook the news cycle, and a Google search today doesn't bring up any new information about this death. This raid happened almost a year ago. What is happening now? The search may have found nothing and the investigation has died down. I think if this is the case, the investigation hasn't closed. If it had been closed, JP and his attorney would be shouting from the rooftops that he's been cleared. We would definitely know if this was the case. The other option is that the raid resulted in evidence that needed to be further scrutinized or resulted in more leads that arresting JP could hinder.
Informant. But regardless of whether you're working as a CI or named informant, the police want information from you that they can quantify. For instance, the police often want to use your information to help them get search warrants from a judge. This is often accomplished as a confidential informant. But before the police can use your information confidentially, they must develop your credibility and your reliability as an informant. The people who you are informing upon are potentially dangerous people. There's an old saying.
All we know is what we know from that day in November. A raid happened, and evidence was taken. We are left hoping that this is the turning point in the case, and justice is coming.
Thank you for listening. Please comment, like, and subscribe. You can also check out our podcast, Fixate Today, Gone Tomorrow, for more content. Have anything you'd like us to fixate on? Reach out and let us know. Thanks for joining us. Disclaimer: we are not investigators, journalists, detectives, law enforcement, or historians. We are two neurodivergent ladies who just hyperfixate. Please do not take our opinions and ideas as statements of fact. All allegations are just that. We are not accusing anyone of anything, simply offering our interpretation of what we've researched.